Welcome to another episode of Victoria's Lounge from Zaria, Portugal. Now today we're talking about teen suicide. According to the World Health Organization, suicide is the leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 15 and 29 years old. 3 years ago, 78% of suicide-related deaths happened in low to middle income countries. And Kenya fits right into that bracket. We don't have specific numbers in terms of what teen suicide rates look like here in the country, but it is a conversation worth having. What would lead a teen or young adult to take their lives? What are some of the triggers, and how does one get help? And for those who attempted and managed to get past it and live, what keeps them going? Well, let's get the conversation started, but first, meet my guests. Wanjiru Mbogori is a child and adolescent clinical mental health therapist with a trauma specialization. She's also interested in parenting issues and currently managing a corporate crash. Zarya Gikonyo is a college student who once toyed with the idea of suicide back in her teen years. She now has an ambition to become one of the greatest lawyers Kenya has ever seen. Tune in for her story of how she grew out of that season of her life. All right, so let's start the conversation. Zarya and Dr. Wanjiru, thank you so much for coming in. Zarya, let's begin with you in terms of when did this begin? Because I'm sure you had quite a normal childhood.
Well, I was a preterm baby. Obviously, that comes with its challenges, but I had a pretty healthy upbringing. So when I came to realize that there could be something wrong was around 2-3 years ago. I fell sick. I just woke up one morning. I tried to stand up to go to the bathroom, couldn't move. So I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I can't walk. So she rushed me to hospital, and that's where my journey began. This was September 2016.
How old were you then?
I was 17. I was doing my final year of A-levels. So it was a big year for me.
Yeah.
So I started going to hospital. I stopped going to school, so I had to pull out of school, and this is my final year, so it's crucial. The doctor said, okay, it could be a vitamin deficiency, so I was taking vitamins. They said it could be nerve damage, so I was taking medication for my nerves. They said it could be a rheumatic disease, so I was just taking so many things. So come January, I'm still taking all this medication, still using crutches to walk, and I'm stuck. I'm no longer going to school. I'm just thinking to myself, has my life actually just stopped? So I started self-medicating. I didn't know I was self-medicating. I went for treatment in the UK, in London, and they told me, look, the meds you're taking are damaging your brain, so you need to stop. So I was like, okay, that's easy, I can just stop. But I stopped for one day, and I started having shakes. I was irritable. So I was like, okay.
Withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, no, I can't stop. So I started taking them again. And what I came to realize is it was making my symptoms worse. But I couldn't stop because I was dependent. So with physiotherapy, I started walking again. I got back to school, but by the time I was going back to school, it was too late. It was around the time that I had to do my exams, and till today, I can't remember doing those exams because of the pills I was taking at the time. So I used to wake up in the morning, take about 4-6 pills, lunchtime take 2 more, at night take around 7. It was a routine. If I would go 1 hour past the time I was meant to take it, I would start shaking, I would be irritable. So this became my life. One day I was just fed up. I would stay in my room, would close the curtains, and I wouldn't eat. I would be asleep all day. Someone would try talking to me. I was irritable, and I just didn't want to see family. I didn't want to see friends. I didn't want to be social. And before I was pretty social, outgoing, life of the party, So one day I'm only meant to take like a maximum of 4 pills at a go.
Okay.
So I doubled everything, hoping that maybe I wouldn't wake up, or I didn't know what I wanted. So obviously I wake up the next day and I'm even more depressed than I was before. So I get into the shower and I'm crying. I'm just having a rough time, and I look at the shower head. So I weigh my options. I'm like, I'm not gonna cut myself, so let's see if this shower head can hold my weight. So I felt the weight. I was still a bit drugged up, so I felt the weight. I was like, okay, this could possibly hold my weight. So I started looking around for something that I could hang. And when I realized what I was doing, I just broke down. Got out of the shower, went to my mom, and I was like, because I'm pretty open and close with my mom, I told my mom, something's not right. I don't want to live anymore. My life is over. My peers are moving on and I'm stuck. People are going to university and I'm just here doing nothing, So come November, people have gone to university. I was accepted into university, but I couldn't go because of the self-medicating I was doing.
Right.
I went to see a psychiatrist. I was diagnosed with severe depression, and now we started the process of weaning off the medication.
Right.
Because it was all prescription pills. Like, I wasn't doing any hardcore drugs, I was just doing prescription pills, and that was my poison. So around November I went into a treatment center. I was able to get away from those drugs, and I started my counseling. I used to go for group sessions. December, mental breakdown. So I'm like, I can't catch a break.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, okay. But I always put up this phase that I'm strong. I have to be strong for those around me. Come January this year, it was a hard month. I was meant to be going to school. Again, that didn't happen.
And I really wonder, because you're talking about these manic episodes of up and down, and of course that can also take a toll on you, because you're feeling, I thought I was past this.
Yeah.
I thought I was getting better. Were there any triggers that would bring you back to those low points for you that you at least noticed?
I would miss the highs. The highs of when I would when I would self-medicate. When you're on all these drugs, you have a don't care attitude. You're happy all the time. And I miss being happy, because I was a happy child. I miss being me. When I wasn't self-medicating, I would think to myself, will I ever be normal? Will I ever have a normal life? Will I ever say I don't suffer from a mental illness? So I battle with that daily. what I used to take was pretty cheap. I would get like 10 tablets for 400. You take one and you're on top. So I would go buy the 10 tablets, take 2, and I'm calm. I'm good. But then what follows is the guilt.
So when it came to, because you at this point are doing self-medication, the money you were getting from family, where were you getting the money from? Or where were you getting the money from to buy the medication?
I became very malicious and very cunning as to get my fix. So I would tell them, oh, I'm going to meet friends, I want to go get some food, but at this time I wasn't eating. I had lost so much weight and people could see. So the money that they would give me for food I would save and go to the pharmacy and buy.
You know, Wanjiru, we're hearing, this cycle, literally, of Zarya's experience of course, how she got into these low points, the medication now becoming an addiction to get to that high. And really, it's a desire of hers to get to the happy person that she knows she really is, that she can't sustain. But how do you speak to a young person who, and she's blessed enough to at least express it. Some young people do not, and suffer silently. But how do you begin to draw it out of them to be open about what they are going through?
I'm amazed at how well she's able to express it, even in a scenario like this. And usually they're happy. It takes a while for them to trust. She has to trust me in order for me to be able to draw it out of her. So the first few sessions may not work. And it also depends on whether she's come willingly or she's being brought there by force. So if she's come willingly, she may be able to just come and say, this is it. If she's been brought there by force, she'll most likely come in and say, my mother thinks I have a problem and I don't have a problem. And that's it.
Right.
And so it becomes a case of being able to express to her that I can be trusted. Because the first thing I would say to her is, whatever we discuss with you is totally confidential.
Right.
And really, I have no business disclosing it to her mother or her father, for that matter. She would have to do it whenever she was empowered enough to explain to them. And again, it also depends on the family and how they have taken it, what they have seen. Because to begin with, maybe the parent has come and said to me, this is what our daughter is going through. We don't understand what she's on about or what she's taking. Because they do get crafty, like she's saying about getting their fix. That becomes very important. So if it means stealing, they'll steal to do that. But if she comes willingly and realizes, like, at that point when the guilt sets in and she's able to say, look, I shouldn't be doing this, then she might be able to say, okay, I need help. Then come out there and talk about it.
Right. And that acknowledgement certainly is the beginning, first step to getting that help necessary to see the change in your life. And Zarya, of course, will be talking about now that help you that you're receiving. And generally the pressures that young people go through, some of the signs that parents, teachers, loved ones need to start looking out for in their loved one when it comes to mental health issues. So let's take a short break. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. A heavy episode, to say the least. And Zarya, so you're taking us through your experience of, here you are trying to get this fix, which really is your desire to get that high, which really is you wanting to be happy again. That's always been Zarya, So what space would you say you're in now in terms of, are you still in that addictive phase where you feel I need the meds to be here? Or are you really getting constructive help to get you out of it?
I'm seeing a counselor every other day, and I'm still talking to my psychiatrist. I have a really good relationship with my psychiatrist, and that's important. You know, he's someone I can call at any moment, and he'll, you know, he won't tell me what I want to hear, but he'll give me advice. You know, more like a father, and we have that close relationship. And with my counselor, we have a friendship, and I feel very comfortable with her.
Yeah.
In terms of the addiction, I'm past that.
Okay.
I don't want to live my life depending on drugs. And talking about it really helps. When I feel down, I don't ask myself, okay, when can I go grab a pill? No, I talk about it. And I look at where I've come from and where I don't want to head, and I tell myself, hey, I have to move on.
Yeah, you mentioned how important it is to talk about it. When did you get to the point where you were willing to share? Because not a lot of people are, for obvious reasons, stigma that comes along with, and being judged, and people saying what is wrong, just get over it, you're having a bad day. How did you get to the point where you felt, I'm ready to share this?
When I went to the treatment center, I met people dealing with the same thing as me, dealing with worse things than me, and they were all sharing, and I felt comfortable enough to share with them and to share with the counselors. And I came to realize I'm not abnormal. That's what you have to realize. You're just a normal person. This is just something that came about.
Right.
Just an obstacle in your life that you need to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wanjiru, we were talking about this earlier, for family members, for loved ones, for friends, not to see the person as the condition, but someone with.
Yes.
And I believe that is a struggle also for the person themselves. And you alluded to this, Zarya, when it comes to, this is my new normal.
Yeah.
This is my new normal, and coming to terms with that. So how do you kind of talk someone through it, of you may not come out of it entirely, but you can manage it and you can still live a normal life? How do you talk them through that?
One is first for them to understand what that condition is.
Yeah.
So, for instance, whatever they're struggling with, whether it's addiction or anything. And I prefer to say, instead of saying they have the condition, I say they're struggling with the condition, because it's not them, it's not what defines them.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get them to understand is that new normal can be lived with, as long as you have internalized what it is that you can and cannot do. So for instance, if some mental health conditions call for as little stress as possible, that you don't want to stress them.
Yeah.
So in terms of the studies, what are they going through? If, like in college, can you take a lighter load rather than the full course, which might mean you'll stretch your school, but it doesn't mean you can't finish.
Right.
And it doesn't finish that you can't graduate. So it's bringing them to that point of acceptance first and foremost, that this is something that you will manage, you can manage, and you can live with, without it defining you, without you having to go under the covers every time you think, this is me now, I have this condition. So, and then again, to get the family. I really feel the best way to help somebody like Zarya is to get her family on board, to understand what it is. So like in this case, her mom is supportive, her dad is still thinking, no, this can't be happening to my child. And that's why I would say this becomes a family issue. And where the family accept it and are able to walk alongside her, she internalizes it faster and gets to that point of acceptance.
Yeah.
So that's...
And if you can speak to the wider stigma beyond family accepting, but just generally society, when it comes to accepting mental health in the African context. It's something that's foreign oftentimes.
Absolutely. And like I was saying, you know, in Africa we have not differentiated mental health from psychosis.
Yeah.
So you have mental health issues, you're mad. You need to go to a mental institution. And that isn't the case. Mental health is you know, there's so many conditions
Yeah.
that come under mental health that could be dealt with, that are treatable, that are even depression, which is one of the things that is a big, big thing, is treatable.
Yeah.
It's just that the person has to be willing to get help, and you have to be able to find the right kind of help, because not, you know, there's no one size fits all kind of treatment for everybody, because everybody is a different person.
Absolutely.
So the stigma is what keeps people away from getting treatment. And like family particularly, when you get to even things like abuse, and families don't want to accept that there is abuse within the family setting because of what the wider society is going to say. Because, you know, it's like, how are we going to look at ourselves when we start saying our daughter is struggling with this?
Yeah, yeah.
So instead of understanding what we look at, and as a society decides they come first. So you, our family member who is struggling with this, if we can hide you, we'll hide you, you know. We have to hide this thing under the covers.
Yeah.
We cannot talk about it because we don't want the wider society and the community. Because again, you don't get support from the community.
Right.
We have this thing of, oh, did you hear so-and-so's daughter tried this, or so-and-so's daughter is going through this. And that puts everybody, keeps, you know, everybody's lips zipped.
Exactly.
And when we zip up, then we are just trying to band-aid the situation instead of treating it.
And speaking of bandaging the situation, I read a story recently of a young man who went to upmarket school, lived in a good area, had both parents in the home, seemed like a stable situation, even had a chauffeur taking him everywhere he wanted to go. Next thing you know, he commits suicide, leaves a note that says neglect, and leaving everyone wondering, what did we miss? What did we miss? And Zarya, I mean, if you can speak to the generation now, the assumption is you have everything. You have gadgets, you have access to whatever you want, money, support. So how can someone, for instance, in that young man's position, think to take his life when there's people probably going through worse? How can he feel neglected? I mean, if you can just speak to that in terms of having parents watching this understand what they could have missed in that situation.
Well, first of all, don't put yourself in the same category as everybody else struggling, because you're all going through different things, and what you're going through to you could be bigger than someone else. So don't put yourself in the same category. And maybe for this boy, yes, he has everything, but what I think we need to understand, and parents need to understand, is the materialistic things don't matter to us as much as they think they do. Sometimes we just want someone to ask us, are you okay? How are you feeling? What kind of day are you having? You know, the materialistic things don't matter. Yes, they're good, but we just need someone who cares. And quite often I find myself gravitating to those who ask me, are you okay? You know, who are always checking up on me. So when you think your child is, you know, you're giving your child everything, the best education, the best phones, everything. No. They just want your support. They need someone to listen to them. Maybe this child doesn't want to go to that school.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't matter to him or her. So for parents just to listen to us and understand us and treat us as equals, I think that could go a long way.
Yeah, you've said it right there. I think the perfect place to take a break. Parents, your children need your presence, not your presence. So I hope that's a challenge, and you're listening to that call and that cry. Really, it's a cry.
Yes.
From the children, from the younger generation. That they need you, not the things. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're watching Victoria's Lounge. I don't want people watching the show to feel, oh, we're going to be in the doldrums after watching this. There is hope.
Yes.
And I want you to walk away with that. If it's a parent, if it's someone who is going through this right now, there is hope. And life is worth living. And I want you to walk away with that. And Wanjiru, if I begin with you on this, in terms of a parent who now is noticing some tendencies, some behaviors that could be worrying, how do they ask the question? Because I was watching an awareness video about teen suicide, and they encouraged parents to be outright and ask directly, are you suicidal? And do you want to kill yourself? And I thought, wow, that could take someone into a dark space that they don't want to go to.
Exactly.
So what should be the right way to ask? And before you tell us that, what are some of the triggers, or at least the signs they need to look out for as a parent or a loved one?
Okay. First, I'll say a parent really needs to know their child.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where, like Zarya was speaking about, they don't want presence, they want presence. You want to be able to say, I know my child.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you know your child and you start noticing things that are strange, like oversleeping, overeating sometimes, or not eating, living in a dark room, 4 walls, no light, no nothing, cutting. If you just notice some marks, or even like tattoos, suddenly she's full of tattoos, then you need to start wondering about what may be happening. Could also be that she started to give away her things, or she's talking about that other place that you go to that is not defined. They will not really say anything, you know, because depending on their faith, there might be that fear of, am I going to go to hell if I commit suicide? Am I going to, you know, is God going to forgive me? And everybody has a higher being somewhere. So what does it mean to them? So if a parent finds that their child is beginning to do some of these strange things that they were not doing before, then they need to be aware that something is wrong. And if they have a very good relationship with their child, they can come alongside the child and say, how are you doing? What is it? Not just out of the blue. It's something you've been saying, how are you doing? And if you get this, nothing, but they're doing strange things, then something is wrong. And maybe the best thing is to ask them then, you know, is there anything I can do? Is there somebody you would rather talk to? Or because parents don't know anything. Zarya just mentioned that and said parents don't know everything.
Yeah.
So that could be threatening to just go right up to them and say, are you suicidal?
Right.
It's easier to get it out when you're talking to somebody else rather than your own parent, because your parent is going to say to you, yes, I'm suicidal. Then what?
Exactly.
Yeah. So rather than try and be the counselor, a parent, I can't counsel my own child, even if I'm a counselor. So it's best to just talk to them nicely, see if they will accept help from somewhere else, even a friend who is close. Because sometimes you may have spoken to a friend, the friend may come up and say, hey, you know, Zarya is thinking of doing this.
Yeah.
Then you want to get them help at that point. And it's less traumatic for both of you. Because for me to hear my child wants to commit suicide is definitely traumatic, and I will not handle it right. Because I cannot be objective about it. And I cannot see that pain that is so deep that she wants to actually commit suicide. So my suggestion is get help, because help is there.
Right. And as we're talking about how they would express themselves, Zarya, you're not full of tattoos.
No.
But you have the tattoo. Explain what it says and why you decided to get it.
It's just warrior. And when I was getting it, I wanted this big thing to not go down my arm. But then Mom was like, oh, Zarya, you know, think of your career. And I didn't hide anything from her. I was like, Mom, I told her once I stop self-medicating, this is what I want to do. I want to remember this time. And I want to remember that I overcame. So, surprisingly enough, she said, okay, I'll take you. So my mom and I have always been close. you know, she's my best friend. I'll tell her anything.
That's good.
So we went to the tattoo parlor, and I told them I wanted to say warrior, and instead of the I want a semicolon. A semicolon in mental health defines like continuation of life. You know, you didn't take your life, you continued your life.
Right.
So that's what I got. I got warrior with a semicolon, and the birds. The birds for me is being free from self-medicating, and being free from sort of being in a dark place and not knowing what's happening. Now I've flown away from that place, and I know what's going on, and I can manage it, and I can move on. Yeah, there might be some downhill times, but I'll overcome that. Yeah.
That's beautiful, because it's you taking the power back.
Yeah.
And you're taking control again of the situation. You know, Wanjiru, I'm thinking about also another way they do express themselves, social media. You see quite a few, unfortunately, after one has taken their lives, several posts, very dark, cryptic, you know, talking about their experiences, what they want to do, and oftentimes it's overlooked. When should we start paying attention? Because of course that is a cry for help. Some parents may feel, does that mean I'm stalking my child on social media? But what should they do in order to take action once they start to see stuff like that?
Talk about it. Talking to your child is very important, and getting them to understand that, look, I'm not judging you, but let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Because you find on social media there's quite a few things that validate things like suicide, and there are people who have actually committed suicide on social media. So young people who are all tech savvy, more tech savvy than parents will ever be, find these things. And if a child is dabbling with that in their mind, they're bound to find something like that on social media, and therefore it validates them, and they feel like, oh, okay, if that person did it and they did this, I can do it. Because on this side what they're hearing is, you will never carry it out, you are weak, you want to bring shame to the family. There's all that stigma that comes in. So social media, if they're watching things like this and they're talking about it, and again that comes from the relationship they have with their parents. If you find they're talking too much about this kind of suicide, and there was the Blue Whale Challenge.
Yes, yeah.
That was something basically telling children, do this. There is something, and as long as you're telling each other, the kids tell each other, look, I'm doing this now, I'm at this level, or I'm doing this task, I'm doing that task. So it becomes a thing where they think it's okay to carry on. So once you find that that is happening, then I think it's time to have a good talk with your child. You can't tell them stop watching. And again, they don't want you to be stalking them, but watch out for what they're doing and then talk. And because the more you talk, I have a granddaughter who's 7, and she recently found something online, you know, like they use computers in school, and something popped up, and then she quickly erased the program. Her mother had watched her do it, and she erased it, and the mother said, why did you do this? Says, Mommy, somebody there is asking me if I want to kill myself. So nobody is policing what is on social media. Right? So we cannot block everything entirely out. And I can't tell a child like Zarya, say, Zarya, you can't watch this, or you can't do this. But I also want her to have her privacy. But the only way to get to her is to be able to form a relationship. We are relational beings. So if I don't have a relationship with my child, there is no way I will get to know this. But it is good if parents can start realizing that whatever I'm going through may be tough, but I need a relationship with my child so that we are able to talk and go through things together.
Really good point in terms of the only way you can keep tabs is beginning that relationship in the first place. If you don't have it, it makes it 10 times harder. But Zarya, I'll just wrap up with you. What makes you happy? What makes you hope that it is going to get better, that you are okay? And just, you know, this really is an encouragement to young people watching, in a world where, like Wanjiru mentioned, you have the blue whale game making light of something like suicide, or even the show, I think it's 13 Reasons Why, that glamorizes suicide. What makes you hope, and why do you feel life is still worth living?
I have so much ahead of me. I really, really, really want to be a lawyer. So I look at that and I have hope. To me, that's worth living for. And you know, I have a book written by Demi Lovato. It's called Staying Strong. So it guides you every day with a quote and something to motivate you. So like today, you could have a quote and you'll actually sit back and be like, this is exactly how I feel, you know? And looking at a public figure like her, who has overcome, you know, depression, bipolar, and being suicidal, substance use, you know, I have hope, and her speaking out helped me, and hopefully me speaking out will help someone else, and that's all I can hope for, and that keeps me going.
Great.
Yeah.
And I know you'll be a great lawyer.
Thanks.
One day. Oh yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you in that day. Thank you so much, Zarya and Wanjiru, for your time and just being open and candid and honest about your experience. Hopefully it does help, and Wanjiru, for your help in terms of advice to loved ones and family members and parents to know how to deal. It's not the end of the world if this happens. There is life after. We'll certainly have also some help on all of our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well, to offer support if you need it for both family and those who are struggling with mental health. Shouldn't be a secret. It should not. You're not going through this journey alone. Open up and you'll be surprised at the support that you do actually get. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much to Zaria Portico for hosting us. Have a wonderful evening.